Hello, everyone, and thanks for continuing to hang out with us on Local 4 Plus. And as promised, I have Dannie De Novo, an attorney turned mindset coach, happiness coach, here with us today because we're going to talk a little bit about, it's the holiday season. There's good cheer, there's happiness, it's the shopping, it's the season to be excited. But what happens when there aren't necessarily any external reasons to be happy? How do we maintain this? How do we continue it? And that's why she is now a mindset coach to give us a few tips on how to go about this. Dannie, welcome, first and foremost.
So
great to have
you.
Great to have you. Now, we'll get into some of your practical tips. As you guys can see, we have some stuff laid out that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But you have a very interesting personal story and a very interesting journey. Tell us about how, you dealt with anxiety and depression, but then you became a mom, and that motivated you to make a difference. Tell me about that.
Well, I grew up with crushing anxiety as a child,
Okay.
and that kind of morphed into depression eventually in my teens and my early 20s, and it became very, very bad, unmanageable, completely derailed my life. And so what I started doing is pretending like I was happy so that I could kind of get through life. And so I was functioning, I was a lawyer, I was going to work every day, I was paying the bills, but I wasn't really living. I was just sort of existing day to day.
Okay.
And then one day I had my daughter, and she started to get a little older, and I was making dinner on the stove one evening, stirring a pot like this, and she was on the floor, and she had her little play bowls and spoons. She's about a year old then.
Okay.
And she picked up her play bowl and spoon, and she looked up at me trying to get my attention, and she started stirring exactly like I was stirring. She was mimicking my motion.
Wow.
At first I thought it was the coolest thing I had ever seen, because the first time she did anything like that. And I said, yeah, just like mommy. But then I almost fainted right on top of her. I just fell to the floor, crushing wave of anxiety and nausea, because I realized that I was teaching her how to live this depressed, lonely, unfulfilled life. It didn't matter what I said, it mattered what I did, because that's what she was copying.
Right.
And so I sat down on that floor and I promised her I was going to learn everything there was to know about happiness. I didn't think I could be wired for happiness. I just didn't think it was in the stars for me, right? But I thought she was young enough that if I learned, I could teach her, and then she could avoid all of the pain and suffering that I went through going through my depression and anxiety. But of course, when I started implementing all of these things that I was studying, my life very quickly started to change. And so I started adopting all of these new habits and looking at the world a little bit differently, and before I knew it, I was wired for happiness.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I think it's a good story.
Yeah.
Looking back, I see why I went through the things that I did. I have a lot of compassion now for people who are struggling. I understand what those dark days look like. Not too many people can say that they've done that and then come out on the other side. So I know everything I went through, I had gone through was for a reason, and I'm actually very fortunate that it happened the way that it did.
Yeah, and I mean, what better motivation than your daughter? Sometimes we don't even realize, I can speak for myself, I don't even realize what I'm doing until I see it reflected back to me. Like, wait, what was I thinking? What was that about? But let me ask you this. Do you think as society that we're looking at happiness, and I say in quotation marks, the wrong way?
I think that we look at happiness as something that should be coming to us, instead of happiness being something that emanates through us. Happiness is self-derived. It is internal. There is nothing external to you that can ever bring you happiness. Money, job, where you live, another person, any kind of relationship, none of that. I can't even rely on my daughter for my happiness. I have to rely on myself. And it's a lot of work. And people don't like to hear that, but it's like going to the gym. If I want muscles, I have to go to the gym every day, or pretty consistently anyway, right? But then when I get them, if I want to maintain them, I still have to keep going to the gym. And my happiness is the same way. I work on my happiness a little bit every single day. You have to, because you've got all of this crazy energy coming in from the world, a lot of negativity, a lot of things going on in your own system. You've got to be able to balance that out day to day.
Right. Now, you did this. You went from being an attorney to a mindset coach. How did that happen? Because, just to rewind just a little bit, you said you were going through anxiety and depression, but you're still highly functional. Like, you went to law school, you passed the bar, you did all that. But then when did you decide to make that shift?
Well, I decided that day that I was on the floor with my daughter. And
Okay.
so I started studying, but I didn't know anything. So I started with religion and philosophy, started talking to monks and shamans and people all over the world. And that led me to person after person. And so I was doing a lot of reading. I mean, I was studying like I was a lawyer, but with happiness. So a lot of highlighting, right?
That's great.
But going to people who I thought had the answers that I didn't have, because I wanted the answer to happiness. What happened is I started doing all of this stuff that seemed a little bit crazy to the people around me. A lot of people exited my life. I ended up getting divorced. Even close family members kind of, went to the side because I had gone from a very sort of serious, lawyer type to all of a sudden, hey, everybody. And my personality to them had changed a lot.
Okay.
Now, one day, my younger brother came to me and he said, what are you doing? What are you reading? And I said, well, this and this, why? And he said, well, you seem really happy, and I've never seen you that way before.
Wow.
And I said, okay. And then he said, if it worked for you, do you think it would work for me? So I didn't even realize how much he had been suffering because he was suffering in silence like so many people are. And I said, hey, it's worth a shot. And so I started giving him stuff to do, and his life started to change.
Wow.
So all of a sudden I was like, wow, I could probably recreate this over and over again for people, and they can avoid, again, the pain and suffering that I had gone through, or they could come out of their own pain and suffering into this life that we're meant to live, which you are supposed to be living a happy life.
Yes. Wow, that's amazing, because kind of like how your daughter, you felt like she was going to pick up your negative habits, here's your brother picking up all of the positive things, picking up on them and then wanting that for himself.
Well, you said life is a mirror, right?
Yes.
People around you are always mirroring back to you what's going on with yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're encountering a lot of negativity, chances are you're probably giving off a good bit of negativity. But people are modeling you, they are watching you, the people who are important to you and who see you every day. And so that's why it's so important with kids, especially those who are suffering with anxiety and depression, to model how to do it. I didn't know how to be happy because no one ever taught me how to do it.
Right.
But now I'm teaching my daughter, and hopefully she'll teach her kids, and we've broken that cycle, and we can be a happy family going forward.
I like that a lot, because I think a lot of times when we think anxiety, when we think depression, we think adults, but it happens in kids and it's increasing in children, isn't it?
I don't know if it's increasing or we're just able to see it more because of social media and the fact that we're a little bit more aware of it ourselves.
That's true.
But I love the mirror analogy because I do something called mirror child. I say if you show me an anxious kid, I will show you an anxious parent.
Okay.
So a lot of their behavior is coming from the way that their day-to-day is, the way that they're brought up, and you have to take a really hard look at yourself, which is not an easy thing to do, and say, am I showing my child how to go after their dreams and aspirations? Am I living my life with joy? Am I living my life with, zeal and zest? A lot of people say, well, my kids are just sort of listless and they just lay around all day. Well, what are you doing to show them that they should be going after these amazing things in life, right? It always comes down to us, and you want to be the model for the people around you.
Yeah. And I mean, when you're not right where you want to be, it's not always easy to look at yourself and say, okay, what role do I play in this not being a good situation? That's hard.
It's really hard, but when you get used to asking that question, it becomes easier. And it should be a question you should be asking yourself all of the time, because this is a lifelong learning thing, right?
Okay.
My happiness today isn't going to look like my happiness tomorrow. I've got to keep checking in with myself as I grow older, as my life experiences change, as I grow and change. Right? We're never sort of in the same place ever again. So that's another reason why we have to work on it every day.
I like that. And it's funny you should say that, because we were talking about vision boards in a meeting, a work meeting, right, at the beginning of the year. And I told everyone how I found a vision board from 10 years ago, a digital one.
Oh, that's great.
And I looked at it and I was like, I don't want any of this stuff anymore.
Right.
So we change as people.
Yeah, we do. It was really funny. I did a vision board a while back and I had kind of put it aside and I pulled it out and then I looked at it and everything on there had happened, but not exactly the way that I thought it was going to happen. It looked a little bit different than the actual vision board, and I think that is a really good metaphor for how we look at our happiness. We think happiness needs to look like A, B, and C for us to be happy, but in reality, maybe we can sort of change that mindset around it a little bit. You should be able to get happiness and joy just from very simple things, like including just the foods that you eat every single day.
And there are foods that can actually help your happiness, right? So we have a list of them. So let's get that graphic up. And these are some of your suggestions. You say nuts, as in almonds and pecans. I like both of those.
Okay, good.
Number 2, dark chocolate. Love that also. cranberries, love cranberries, coconut, cinnamon, all of the above, all of the above. Now, you also, let's talk about, there's something that you mentioned, we talked about this off camera, little happy bites. Did I say that right? Did I say that right?
Little bites of happiness.
Little bites of happiness. And they're delicious. I got to preview one. But talk to us really quickly about something that we should avoid, which is sugar.
Sugar, yes. You want to avoid sugar. Now, it's a really hard thing to do. It's really hard if you're eating processed foods and you're eating out a lot. But I made the decision about a year ago to really kind of eliminate sugar from my life. Not completely. There is a little bit there. But I tried to work with recipes where I could take as much sugar out of the system as I could, because sugar really fuels anxiety. It also destroys our gut, and our gut health is related to our brain health and really affects our mood more than you realize. Sugar is doing all kinds of crazy stuff to our system all day long, and you've got enough to deal with from a mental standpoint, so why be fighting the biological, internal stuff at the same time, right? Let's manage what we can, because we can control this. We can control what we put in our body every single day. Again, not an easy shift to make in life, right? But you start little by little, and eventually it becomes a habit. And then I'm at the point now where if I eat something sugary, I just don't even feel good.
Yeah, and it probably tastes too sweet to you because you've
it's
kind of trained yourself.
And I mean, immediately my body just says, no, we don't want this. We're done with this, right? And I get either like stomach pains, or I get really tired, or I just feel like, like I'm getting sick or something like that, because it's become that toxic to my system.
Wow, that's incredible. So let's talk about the bites of happiness.
Okay.
So do we have all of these ingredients in these? The chocolate? I did taste nuts and cranberries.
They're almost all here, yes.
Okay.
So I start out with just sprinkle some cranberries. I chop them up a little bit so they're a little bit tiny. And I chop up some pecans, and I just have a little silicone mini muffin pan, and I sprinkle them at the bottom. And then I mix together refined coconut oil, organic, and dark chocolate almond butter, which I have a homemade recipe in my cookbook, which has, very little sugar in it, and very easy to make at home, very keto friendly. And when you stir those together, they melt down really nice. And then I add a little vanilla and a little coconut flour, and you pour them into the molds and pop these into the freezer. 2 hours later, they're ready to go. And then I add some of the other things on top once they come out, which I know you wanted to help with.
Yes, so we want to do the final touches. So this is melted dark chocolate.
Yes, it is.
So what do we do with that?
Okay, dark chocolate. Let's see if we can get it to come out here a little bit.
Ooh la la.
So then I would just drizzle a little bit of dark chocolate on top. Well, it's not really ready, but that's okay.
That works.
This is
good, right?
Kari is getting really happy. Now, Kari, you previewed one of these. How delicious were these? We both had one. We cheated.
super quick.
Yeah.
So when I originally saw the 5 things, I saw them separately. I'm like, you know what? That sounds good together. And then I saw the second picture where they were all together. I was like, boom, she gets me.
Absolutely.
So,
And then we put a little coconut.
Yeah, go ahead. Sprinkle a little coconut on top.
Now, I like coconut, so I might be a little heavy-handed with this.
I love coconut. I have loved it since I was a kid.
Okay. And something about coconut, I feel like it keeps me really full.
It is. It's a great food. It has MCT oil in it, which helps alleviate stress. And one study said that it was so good at doing so, it was like taking a Valium.
What?
And that is the kind of stress relief I need in my life.
Same here. And then cinnamon, which
cinnamon.
is, oops.
Oh, there you go.
A little, I'm heavy-handed. I'm trying to be. These look beautiful. We also have some pictures that you sent me. These look at this. I mean, who would not be excited to see a plate of this in front of them?
It's great because just a couple of these really fill you up, so you can be a little lighter on the calories, get a lot of good nutrients in your system, but also do something that's actually scientifically supporting your happiness every day.
That's right. And I just loved how you said too, okay, you go to the gym, you gain the muscle, you're got the physique you wanted, but then you have to maintain that. And happiness is the same way.
Yes.
And it's with recipes like this, and constantly planning is something that's huge that I think a lot of us take issue with. It's not the easiest thing to do, but if you made something like this, had them in the freezer,
right? Just grab them when you need them.
Yeah, because I am always hungry by the time I get home, right? We have a long day. Maybe I didn't, cook ahead or meal prep. But if you had one of these,
Yeah,
They'll
just
totally
one
hold you
to
over.
tide you over, or before you go to the gym, a couple just to have enough energy to get going again. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all you really need. A little tea and something small is just enough to sort of quiet your system a little bit, and then you can make really good choices when it comes to eating that larger meal.
Yeah, I like that. Quiet your system.
That's what we want.
I
That's
like
what
that.
happiness is. It's a you can't run around skipping and singing all day long. That's not
Right.
sustainable.
Right.
Happiness is a sustainable state, right? So it's a sense of calmness and peace with yourself, sort of a quiet joy, just kind of, feeling really connected to everything around you. That's how I define happiness. So yeah, if anything we can do to just sort of bring everything back to center and, refocus again where we need to focus instead of when this stuff's going on in our head all day long, we need to drown that out and reconnect with this voice right here.
I like that, Danny. This is great. This is a great conversation. How can people learn more about you, the books you've written, and follow you on social media and all that good stuff?
Well, I'm on social media. Everything is at Dannie De Novo. My website is DannieDeNovo.com. My books are there, some of my courses, and even just free tips of things that I put out there, including food and how to deal with your child when they're having an anxious day. And my books are also on Amazon.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, so great to be here and share this with you.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. We're definitely going to have another one of these before she goes. We will be right back.
See ya.